Program put in place by former Doge head Elon Musk is coming to an end. The Office of Personnel Management officially ending the required 5 things email. Joining us now, Office of Personnel Management Director Scott Kupor. That's fine to end it. Hey, Scott, it's good to see you, by the way, in your new we need to let everyone know, how long were you at Andreessen? You came on Squawk quite a bit. And how long? This is your new gig. How long?
Absolutely. So I've been here about 4 weeks. I was at Andreessen for about 16 years. So far, that still takes the cake right now.
And looking at what you're doing now, is it more efficient, less efficient, or about the same as the private sector in Andreessen Horowitz? You got anything on your radar screen that needs to be worked on, would you say?
Yeah, we got lots of things to work on. Yeah, look, we're starting from a less efficient position, as you might imagine, but I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And some of it is just, look, we've got great people. It's just a question of the system they're working in just doesn't reward efficiency. It rewards, more headcount, more spending. Things only go in one direction here in Washington, and part of the challenge we have is we've got to change that.
The 5, I understood that 5. I'd like an answer if I was going to ask government employees. Number one, I'd like an answer to see that they exist. 2, that they're, able to actually, come up with a couple of things just to show that they're in the game, just to the slightest bit. That's a start, isn't it? So I think that was the reason. It was kind of people laughed at maybe 5 things, whatever. But that was really the rationale for it in the first place, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And look, there was, I think, a very good reason, as you mentioned, to have it at the time. The reason we took another look at it is just, now with the passage of time, we're trying to change the culture. And I think the culture that we want people to understand is, look, as a manager, you should know what's actually happening with your employees. And look, if that tool is helpful to you, great, you can use it. But there's other tools that you should have as a manager, like, for example, have one-on-one meetings with your team, other things that would help you understand what they're doing. So I think it was a good shorthand to start with. And as with all things, we should just make sure that, their utility is still there. And if not, let's move on and try other things, quite frankly.
It's hard to do. The inertia especially in the federal government, is so, it's just almost like 10 times normal gravity, but trying to do something. The deferred resignation program, anything you do, and I'm not, far be it from me to point fingers at Democrats, but you can't shrink anything in the federal government without hearing that the world is ending. And with our budget problems and everything else, and deficit problems, it's just a fact of life. They got to get over it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Joe. Look, this is the problem. You know this well, but just for your viewers, look, we went from $4.6 trillion in spend in 2019 to $7 trillion now. So that's like a 55% growth over the last 5 years. It's just crazy. And look, we had a big bolus of spend in COVID, which was fine, but now we're trying to actually just right-size things. So, the other thing you probably know, look, in the last administration, Biden, they added 300 to 400,000 government employees. So everything we're doing here, nothing we're doing here is radical. We're just trying to kind of say, hey, look, let's right-size things. Let's kind of get back to the run rate we were on. But you're absolutely right. It's really hard to do things in Washington because, in general, people only know one way, which is up. Like, budgets only ever go up. Headcount only ever goes up. And we just have to kind of find a way to kind of make a cultural change in terms of how people view the operational efficiency of the government.
Would you say that things are – we're not even talking about AI yet, Scott. And I don't know what you could do with AI. I don't know what the federal workforce size shrinks to if you start 2-3 years from now, or even now, start implementing, started replacing jobs with that. But it already is bloated, even before you take AI into account.
Yeah, no, you're right. Again, we started the Trump administration with about 2.4 million federal employees. And as I mentioned, that's up about 400,000 just over the course of the Biden administration. So even with all the things that we're working on right now, even if we're successful, through these DRP programs and everything else we're doing, we're still just going to return the federal workforce to essentially where it was when President Trump left office. So, and you're right, like with AI, and part of a big push that we're making now is AI as an efficiency enhancer, as you all well know. I don't know where that takes us in terms of jobs over time, but there are so many things that are done manually, everything from, writing rules and writing regulations. These are things that we know technology is really good at. AI is really good at, distilling information, at culling things. There's a great opportunity, I think, for us to use AI, and we're just literally crawling on this stuff right now, so we have a long way to go.
When it was proposed that you could use AI to look at the regulatory regime. And that's another thing that has just exploded. And for every new regulation, there's probably 50 existing regulations, and we never get rid of any of them. Is it really possible what percentage could we get rid of? Could we get rid of half of what's on the books right now?
I don't see why that's not a reasonable goal. There's a big project going on right now that's just starting, kind of what we're calling, deregulation really has been a primary tenet of President Trump's administration. And yes, we should use AI to literally go through and see, does this thing have a statutory authority? Is it actually still relevant? Because you're right, again, everything just gets stacked consistently one on top of the other. We never actually go back and do the hard work to say, the things that have been in place for 20, 30, 40 years actually still make any sense. So I think there's a huge opportunity there. And look, I know everyone's worried about, AI. We're going to, do things by fiat via AI, but that's not what's happening. We're going to use AI to enhance the efficiency. There's always going to be humans in the loop on this stuff. So there's no worry that we're going to actually do something crazy without, kind of making sure that we have human oversight on these things.
I think the news cycle is like general relativity or something, a time dilation, the way it's happening. So we had something happened on Friday. I don't know if you noticed with the BLS. And
I
then
heard about that.
when you actually look into the way things are done to create or to generate the most important number used by the Fed, used by anyone to try to gauge the health of the economy, it's mind-boggling. It's like circa 1970. It's snail mail. It's hoping people answer. Is that the way it is with everything?
It is. It's actually funny you mentioned that. So there's this term inside the government that I'm learning called a data call. And a data call is very similar to the BLS process, which is if we, for example, want to know how many people have returned to office, since that's been a big, kind of area of the president's focus, we literally put a data call out, which is a manual process to go out to all the agencies and say, report on this data. And then we collate it, and then we send it around to people. And, call me crazy, but it turns out there are things called computers where if you actually had systems, they could track those things, and we could have, instantaneous reporting on this stuff. And so this is where, again, we just have to get away from this idea that the solution to every problem is just more headcount. The reality is, there are plenty of things that we can use technology for, and they'll not only be efficiency enhancing, but they'll improve the quality. We'll actually get real data that we can all rely on because we know there are systems that are actually tracking this stuff.
Hey, Scott, one of the big issues is the credibility of just the numbers generally. And now I'm referring to the BLS, but you could probably extrapolate that out to lots of different numbers that get produced by the government that the American public looks at. One of the things that the president has mentioned is this idea of perhaps more transparency around those numbers. It's something Kevin Hassett's made comments about. And I wonder how you think about that in the context, for example, of collecting what is otherwise private information, then collating that information, making that public. But to the degree that you want to make the process more transparent to create credibility around it, you then create your own conundrum, which is to say that private businesses don't want to be providing their private numbers in ways that are not aggregated, if you will.
Yeah, I hear that argument, but look, I think there's plenty of ways that you can obfuscate kind of, what would be otherwise personally identifiable information, either for individuals or for governments. For businesses. Look, I just don't see any reason why transparency isn't the right way for all these things. We ought to be transparent to the American taxpayers. We got to be transparent to the people who are in the government. The only way you can actually affect change is if people believe the data is accurate, if they believe it's timely, and then let's let smart people make decisions based on that data. So I hear the concerns, and I don't want to dismiss them, but I think that's all solvable. And what's really most important is getting the data out there so people can actually make informed decisions around it.